All right, this is back in Matthew 13, verse 35. 13, verse 55. Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James and Joses and Simon and Judas? So we see the Lord's brothers, right? These are his biological brothers. And his sisters. It said he has sisters. So he has sisters too. Are they not all with us? Whence then had this man all these things? And they were offended in him. But Yahushua said unto them, a prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house. So they were offended in Yahushua, which just proved that Yahushua was not born of some type of extravagant birth. If so, they wouldn't have been offended in him. They would have easily received him. So now it says he has brothers and he has sisters, right? Let's go to the previous chapter. Matthew chapter 12, verse 46. Matthew 12 and 46. What does the scripture say? It says, while he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without. What does that mean, his mother and his brethren stood without? Not only his mother and his brethren that stood without outside of the area in which he was speaking, but it said his mother and his brethren which stood without. Those brethren that stood without also can reference his brothers that stood without, meaning those that did not believe. His mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. But he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother, and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand toward his disciples, and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same as my brother and sister and mother. So what is that right there? That is a clear indication that Yahushua had just differentiated from his brethren in the faith and his actual biological brethren. Because for him to go and stretch forth his hand towards his disciples and reference them as being his brethren, then what about the brethren that stood without? The brethren that stood without were not those that actually believed. Okay? That was those brethren that stood without. As a matter of fact, let me get a scripture real quick. This is the book of John, chapter 7, verse 1. After these things, Yahushua walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him. What does that mean by Jewry?
Strong's G, 2449, Judea.
In other words, Judea. Okay? So let's go back. It says, after these things, Yahushua walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of tabernacle was at hand. His brethren therefore said unto him, depart hence, and go into Judea, that thy disciples also may see the works that thou doest. Go to Judea, so the disciples may see the works that you do. For there is no man that doeth anything in secret, and he himself seeketh to be known openly. So nobody gonna do something in secret. They want to be known for what it is they're doing. If they want everybody to know about it, if they want it to be big news. If thou do these things, show thyself to the world. Do it in front of everybody. Verse 5, for neither did his brethren believe in him. Then Yahushua said unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. So that's the point I wanted to get, verse 5. For neither did his brethren believe in him. See, Yahushua had brothers that did not believe, and those were the brethren that stood without. And we already went into the show earlier, showing that, and we looked at the word Jude in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary on page 299. It said that James and Jude were his brothers in the flesh. Those are the brothers that believed. So guess what? Simon and Joseph were the other two brothers that didn't believe in Yahushua. So we know Yahushua got brothers. This is irrefutable. You can't deny it. All right? You can try to deny it, but you can't refute it. Okay? This is Matthew chapter 6, verse 1. Nope, not Matthew. I'm going to go to Mark. Mark chapter 6, verse 1. And he went out from thence and came into his own country, and his disciples followed him. And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing and were astonished, saying, from whence hath this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joses, and of Judah? That's talking about Judas. And Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? and they were offended at him. This is the same thing we read in the book of Matthew, the 13th chapter. Okay, so we got the account in Matthew and we got the account in Mark. All right, now let's go to the book of John, chapter 2, verse 12. And once again, brethren is talking about he had biological brethren, okay? And just as we read in Matthew, the 12th chapter, when they mentioned his brethren, it mentioned his brethren that stood without. And then he said he stretched forth his hand and said, and towards the disciples, and said, these are my brethren. So there's a distinction between his biological brethren and his brethren in the faith, which he had biological brethren that were a part of the faith, James and Jude, as we went into earlier. Okay? Let's go to the book of St. John 2 and 12. St. John chapter 2, verse 12. It says, after this he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brethren and his disciples, and they continued there not many days. There you go. It says his brethren and his disciples. Why would it say his brethren and his disciples? Once again, it's giving you a distinction between his brethren and his disciples, man. It's giving you a distinction. See that? There's a distinction between both of those groups, his brethren and his disciples. Now let's go to the book of Acts, the 1st chapter and the 13th verse. This is the book of Acts, chapter 1, verse 13. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room, where abode both Peter, where abode both Peter and James and John and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James. So what we see here is 11 disciples mentioned. We don't see 12, and the reason why is because Judas Iscariot is excluded. Because remember, Judas Iscariot had betrayed the Lord for 30 pieces of silver. Okay? So Judas Iscariot is already excluded. And this is when his bishopric, in other words, his position was going to be given to another. But you see here it says James the son of Alphaeus. Let's go to the word Alphaeus real quick. You look at that word Alphaeus, what do you see right there? Let's see.
Strong's G 256. Alphaeus.
Okay. Alphaeus. Changing the father of Levi the publican. This is the father of James the Less, so-called one of the apostles, right? Now, one thing you got to understand is that in the Bible, there are many common names. A lot of people don't understand that. There are many Marys in the Bible. There are many James in the Bible. There are many people in the Bible that go by various names. Many Judes in the Bible. Okay? But if you go back, it says James the son of Alphaeus. Well, who is that? Who's Alphaeus? Let's get that. Now, if you go here, studylight.org, Bible Dictionaries, ATS Dictionary, Alphaeus, it says the father of James the Less. It gives you scriptures here. But when you go right here to Matthew, it says see John 19:25 with Luke 24:18 and Matthew 10:3. It says it is evident. Well, stuff on the top. It says father of James the Less. Matthew 10:3, Luke 6:15, and husband of the Mary, usually regarded as the sister to the mother of, it says Christ right there. We know him as Yahweh. In John 19:25. See John 19:25 with Luke 24:18 and Matthew 10:3. It is evident that Alphaeus is the same as Cleophas. Alphaeus being his Greek name, and Cleophas his Hebrew or Syriac name. Boom. So there we go. We know that Alphaeus, as you read in the book of Acts, the 1st chapter and the 13th verse, is the same as when you read the scripture and you see the name Cleophas, as you read in the book of St. John, 19th chapter and the 25th verse. Let's get back to that. St. John 19:25. Now there stood by the cross of Yahweh's mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. You look at that word Cleophas, what does it say right there?
Strong's G 2832. Clopas. Clopas.
Clopas. And what does it say here? Clopas, my exchanges, the father of James the Less, the husband of Mary, the sister of the mother of Yahushua. So there you go. It's called the sister of Mary. But check this out. When you go back to Acts, the first chapter. So when you go to St. John 19:25, when it says Mary, it says the sister of Mary. It doesn't say, oh, just Mary, the sister of Mary, and leave it blank. Because when you read it, it looks like it doesn't give a name. But when you go into it, it's telling you that that's who the sister of Mary is. But that's not the point of the lesson. The point is right here. When you go to right here, the book of Acts.
Strong's G 256. Althaios. Althaios.
Althaios. Where is that real quick? See if I can find that. I just had it. Bear me 1 second. Okay, here's the point. I looked over it by mistake. When you scroll down, right here, when you go here, it says the father of James the Less, so called one of the apostles. So he was so called James the Less. But why was he called James the Less? Well, we'll get into that in a few. The point I wanted to get to, see, it says he's the father of James the Less. Now, when you go to the book of St. John 19:25, what does it say? You go to St. John 19:25, and you look at the word Cleophas, or Clophas, and you go down, what does it say? The same thing, the father of James the Less. It's calling her the Mary, the sister of the mother of Yahushua. But that's not the point of the lesson, so we're not going to get into that. This is the point I wanted to get to. It says the father of the apostle James the Less. There you go. So it said the same thing in Acts 1:13 about Alphaeus. Alphaeus is called the father of James the Less. Cleophas is called the father of James the Less. So Alphaeus and Cleophas are the same. Okay? It's the same. One is just a Greek way of saying the other, which I read earlier. So they're both the father of James the Less. So we know that this particular James, if his father was Alphaeus or Clophas or Cleophas, what is it understood? It's understood that he could not be Yahushua's brother. So this was a James that was a part of the 12, but this is a James that was a part of the 12 that was not the James that was Yahushua's brother. Check that out. Once again, as I stated earlier, there are many different common names. Even now, you know how many brothers in the camp, in the different GMS camps you got that's a Gabar, you know how many brothers in the camp that's how many Amafs there are in the camp, which means truth. It was all over because you got there are common names. There are common names out there. You got brothers in the camp that got Ba at the end of their name, meaning two or second. Because there's another one. They're the second one. Okay? So another example, Simon or Peter. Peter was known as what? Cephas. Well, Peter means what? Stone. But the Hebrew way would be what? Cephas. Okay? Matter of fact, real quick. St. John 1:42, and he brought him to Yahushua. And when Yahushua beheld him, he said, Thou art Simon, the son of Jonah. Thou shalt be called Cephas, which is by interpretation a stone. Okay? Got the word Cephas. Kapas. It should say rock there. Or stone. Okay? But guess what? Who was he talking to? Who was that referencing? Simon, who was also called Peter. Okay? Simon, who was also called Peter. Let's get the scripture now real quick. This is Mark 15:15. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Declare unto us this parable. I just want to get this real quick. Peter in the Greek is Petros.
Strong's G 4074. Petros.
Petros,
Petros.
which means a rock or a stone. So, can you have people that's known by more than one name? Of course. Of course. Peter was known as Simon, but he was also known as Cephas. So you can have Israelites that's known by multiple names. Alright?